Because of our large role on growth in the region, we need a deeper level of understanding. So today, ask your questions, take notes, soak it all in, talk to each other about your experiences. You've got a great panel today going to be discussing things with you. Involve yourself, encourage your partner, your neighbor to ask questions or share their experiences. This is what today is all about. It's coming together and really sharing what we want to see happen in our region and what we can do to support that.
What I'd like to say is it's really, really exciting to see the direction that BDAR is going and to see this kind of situation occurring. I mean, this is what associations should be doing, not just doing bookwork and things like that. This is really on the streets, in the marketplace, information that's really helpful.
But Barrie at the time wasn't much larger than Fort Erie was today. We're talking 1970s, about 30,000 people. And you look at the incredible growth that we've seen here in the Barrie area, a city that is working. You're all part of that. You're helping build that community. I know from Mayor Lehman's remarks the other day, your population is expecting to go up by a significant amount. You've already doubled, I think, since the time I got in politics in the early 1990s. You've doubled in size with more to come. So why is that happening? Great community. It's got a great history. It seems to be working, and recently, as you borrowed more lands from Innisfil, is that the proper term? Borrow? Honest to God, I can't remember how I voted on that legislation, so I got to be careful. I was in the legislature. I think I supported it at the end of the day. But finally, you got some room for expansion. So a big part of breaking ground here is how you're going to handle growth issues, and growth issues are good issues to have. This is my third time, I believe, Julia. It's coming back to speak at one of your events. Usually after my first time, I don't get invited back, so I'm glad to be back for a third time, which is record. But you guys are always on the cutting edge. And when I was here before, the big issue was affordability, because you had a lot more people chasing fewer and fewer homes. That remains the case today. That was 2017. It's not the crazy market that we saw just under 2 years ago. But still, I mean, every one of you today is probably working with a young couple, millennials. They did everything right, got a promotion, maybe their kid's coming on the way. And it's really hard for them to get into the market these days. Certainly a lot different from when Deb and I got married and got our first home in 2002. A lot of new Canadians are moving to Barrie to find their way in a nice, safe community with a lot of growth, similarly running up against that wall. So that remains a big issue. So I know we're going to talk about that locally. Let me talk what's happening at the higher level, because Michael and Steve and Sean have been right there on the front lines, talking to the cabinet ministers, talking to Premier Ford and Premier Wynne before that about some of the issues. Big issue for us, increasing housing supply. Like, it is nuts that in 2016, we built half as many homes in 2000 than 2006. More people moving in, more immigration, that whole generation of millennials who are now in the home buying age group and family raising age group, people moving from across Canada to beautiful towns and cities like Barrie, and we're building half as many homes. It was crazy. So a big part of our job, and supported by our leaders here like Tanya and Jeff in Barrie when they met with their MPPs, was to say, let's increase housing supply. So how do you do that? Making sure more land is accessible. That'll be part of our discussion today. Every budget, the province or the federal government has infrastructure funds. So here's this for an idea. What if we said, okay, you want money for a water sewer project or a highway expansion or more transportation? We'll give communities that actually have a plan that have housing-ready land available. Wouldn't that be sensible? Use a bit of a carrot approach. And I know part of the discussion later today will be as well, what can we do to speed up the regulatory process? Because in some parts of the province, it could take you 10 to 12 years, honest to God, to get a new development built. People can't wait that long. And you know as well as I do, every month of delay, tax on higher and higher prices. So that's job number one, increasing housing supply. The other thing we lobby for, let's actually reduce the taxes. Does it make any sense to you that after alcohol and tobacco, that real estate is one of the highest tax items out there? Doesn't really belong in that category, does it? Be replaced one day by cannabis, I assume. So alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana. And then housing, taxes are too high, from the development charges to property taxes to the land transfer tax. We recognize you can't solve all those problems at once. There are fiscal challenges. but what if we gave first-time home buyers a waiver on their first home for the land transfer tax? That would help put more money in their pockets and help them get along the way. Big part of our job as well. On the first issue, we're very pleased that Premier Ford has listened. He's now announced a housing supply action plan. We put a number of ideas on the table on how to get housing moving in the province of Ontario, increase inventory and supply. We're working our way through the land transfer tax. The previous Liberal government did increase it by $2,000 in terms of the waiver you get for first-time buyers. We'll continue to work on that. My last update for folks here in the room who are in the real estate business, we're also working on modernizing our legislation. The Real Estate Business Brokers Act of 2002. Any guesses who the cabinet minister was that brought that baby in 17 years ago? It was a younger, slimmer, more hair, tighter waist version of me. So it's funny, Aria hired me to clean up the Hudak mess. But the good news is, by working with our leaders here, like Tanya and Jeff and Steve and Sean and Michael, the government now has opened that legislation. We'll put on things on the table like bringing in personal real estate corporations for realtors, which almost every other profession has in Ontario, leveling the playing field, getting rid of the two-tier consumer protection by eliminating the builder exemption. They don't have to use realtors, as you know. So why do you have a lower level of protection for a new home compared to a resale? We want to see specialty licensing as well, for example, for commercial or agricultural properties. We want to see a more demanding education because, quite frankly, as our president, David Reed, said, it's too easy to get in and it's too hard to kick somebody out when they break the rules. And part 5 of our plan to ensure that if somebody does break the rules, they take advantage of a man or a woman or a family out there in the province. Don't give them a slap on the wrist anymore. Kick them out of the profession altogether. So, folks, I'll leave it at that. That is our overview. I'm very excited about our panelists here today. I'm happy to give my 2 cents, if you like, as well on provincial level. Let's talk local. And I know Mayor Lehman, when he was here for the opening, actually talked about what's happening here in Barrie. I'm excited about what I hear. In terms of more intensification in some areas, building up to 30-floor condos. It'll be interesting to see how the community reacts to that. And what shocked me, actually, you probably knew this, Michael, I always assumed Barrie was a bedroom community. I thought, like my buddy that I lost, and Dad worked down in Barrie, that was normal. But then Mayor Lehman pointed out it's quite the opposite. That Barrie has a low level of people that are out migrating for work every day compared to other GTHA, Golden Horseshoe communities. Interesting to hear. So that poses unique growth issues as well. So my friends, again, Tanya, Jeff, the board of directors, and Julia, congratulations on the outstanding work you're doing here. I'm very pleased to see that on the ground you're planning on how we can build an even better Barrie. It's working. How can we make it work even better for more people who want Barrie as their place to call home? And our board of directors and I at AREA have your back. You fight the ground war, we'll fight at the provincial level, and together we'll make sure that great Canadian dream of home ownership, living, working in a great city like Barrie will be achievable for the next generation. Thank you very much.
So let me start by giving you some context. We have a growth projection on our hands. We're starting at about 147,000 people in 2017. I can tell you that we're up to about 148,300 people in 2018. But we are projected to grow, as per the provincial growth plan, to about 253,000 people and 129,000 jobs by the year 2041. That's not that far into the future. That is significant growth. And as Mr. Hudak indicated, that is a significant change from what was in place 20, 30 years ago. So definitely we are in an opportunity for achieving growth and development in this area. And really what I want to highlight on this slide, the key message is around the fact that there is going to be growth throughout the city of Barrie. There is going to be a significant change in what we would call the amount of growth and the amount of population that is going to be within what I call Old Barrie, or the built boundary. And that is a shift that really Barrie has not experienced in the past. And again, it is largely in part because we have land that was acquired from our friends in Innisfil about 10 years ago. And I did say in my early comments that we are really talking about the secondary plan areas of Salem and Hewitt as Barrie's newest communities. It was 10 years ago that the annexation happened, and we all need to work as one city, as one team, to welcome those new communities to our area. And in addition to that, we're not only going to be seeing growth in the secondary plan areas. In 2041, that's only going to be about 20% of Barrie's overall population. And I need you to really think about that, because everybody thinks that all of the growth is happening in the South End, and it's not. We have significant intensification that is going to be happening in the built boundary, within the nodes and corridors, within the urban growth center, and in some of the greenfield areas that are existing in the existing sort of boundary of the city. So that's a very important piece for you to understand as realtors. It's happening throughout the city, and it's going to look a bit different. And the look a bit different focuses a little bit on intensification. And the current policy framework does have a series of nodes and corridors, so not a difficult concept, corridors, and then sort of circles or areas at key intersections where we want to be focusing growth and development. And one of the key questions I have for you and for many of your clients is, are the existing nodes and corridors the appropriate ones? Do we need to modify them? Do we need to add any? And particularly the thing that I see when I look at this existing map is there are no east-west nodes and corridors in the city of Barrie. That makes it a real challenge when we're talking about connecting, and connected communities are successful communities. So as part of our policy work, we are looking at whether or not we need to be adding or modifying the nodes and corridors policies in our official plan document. Transitioning, urban design and appropriate transition of built form and of density is really important. And we have been doing a lot of work on what that transition could look like, particularly in those nodes and corridors. And there are some illustrations, and the fade-in sort of showed you an existing corridor, or an existing intersection at Essa and Burton, and what it might look like if we were able to transition that with some urban design and some increased density. And here's another one at a very familiar location for many of you, at Essa and the 400 at the former fairground site. What could that look like if we were able to increase density there, if we were able to make it a strong gateway and a strong focal point for our community? It is a key entry to the city, and we have vision for what that might be able to look like a little bit differently. Change brings great opportunity, but change is hard, and it's hard for a lot of people because it's new. And I think Barrie is on the cusp of that right now. We know growth is coming, and what we've heard from our early public consultation on the official plan is that people know it's coming, they're supportive of it, but they want to ensure that they have a complete community. They want to make sure that those transitions between existing and new are done well, and that they have the ability to get around properly. Anybody who drives in the south end of Barrie knows that we have some transportation challenges. And as a city, as the planning department and our engineering team, we need to figure out how we're going to deal with some of that.
Space is one of our biggest challenges locally. So if you look at Innisfil, let's say you go on Realtor.ca, you're not going to see a lot of leasing availability, essentially, for commercial or industrial. And largely when people are moving up here from the GTA, they don't want to lease, they want to own. So one of the other challenges we have is we don't have actually any supply of existing industrial within our industrial lands. And I'm talking about actual built form already. So we do have the land, but that land is not subdivided. So we need to work on those challenges and work with the development community, work with the realtors to do that. While we do have significant proposals in place for Alcona, and frankly hundreds of thousands of square feet are in for site plan, and those are mixed-use developments, those are potentially single-story office buildings. Our new official plan was approved in 2018 called Our Place. We have a focus on placemaking, which means how do we give people a sense of community, a sense of place, similar to what Andrea had mentioned. How do we connect communities so that We're not only attracting people that maybe sold a house in Vaughan and can afford $600,000-700,000, but how do we get the young homeowners into there? How do we get the millennials into there, the first-time home buyers? We don't view Barrie, we don't view Simcoe County as competitors. We need to be collaborative. Often we may not be able to accommodate some of the growth proposals or entrepreneurs or business proposals or even residential proposals. So we send them over to our partners in Barrie, in Simcoe County. We have a process that Simcoe County has been very formal on called an RFI process, where we request information from different communities and then we send it all to the client in one package. So that becomes very efficient. So on the growth side, there's a couple of things. So our current population, about 37,000, that's growing 1,000 to 2,000 each year. It'll be about 56,000 by 2031. Waiting on 2041 allocations, but they should be significant. Like I said, 82% commutes out of the community for work. And we have sort of two central growth regions that we're working on at this point, with a second that I'll talk about in a second. The first is Alcona, which is our main downtown. Over 20,000 of the 37,000 is living within 5 minutes of Alcona. And frankly, you're going to see all of the development, or most of the housing development, will happen east of 20th Side Road. So if you know Alcona a little bit, everything towards the lake, essentially. So you'll see Alcona and Lefroy, which is to the south of Alcona. Those will essentially combine into one community eventually, where the housing will fill in the green fields in between. We've also been approved for a GO station on the 6th line, which is sort of one of our secondary corridors that's going to be coming online in the next few years or decade. We're looking at, so the previous government approved that. The current government is looking for some private funding to go along with that, so we're working with them closely and trying to encourage some private funding on that. Cordalucci owns the lands around that, and we're looking at potential smart cities, smart communities. How do we connect that? How do we integrate that into the rest of our community? It's 2 kilometers south of our main downtown, so how do we do that? We're working through that. The other sort of significant thing we're working on in the Alcona, generally Alcona area, is the Rizzardo Health and Wellness Center. One thing that we struggled with in Innisfil was a lack of health and healthcare services. So we're excited to announce, and we've announced in the past, we're moving towards an over 40,000 square foot facility in Innisfil, where we're going to accommodate 5,000 square feet for Royal Victoria Hospital, with services to be determined. Radiology, life labs, and the blood work there, family doctors, walk-in clinic, telemedicine. We're working on all these things. It's a municipal capital facility that we've invested over $20 million in, and that should launch by fall of this year.
This panel consists of planning leads from the City of Barrie, Township of Innisfil, and the County of Simcoe. These planners will provide the ins and outs of planning from their respective perspectives. They will be given an inside look at the planning policies, procedures, and how realtors can most effectively work through this on behalf of their clients.
We're guided by, planners are guided by legislation, but we do have some innovative thoughts too. But fundamentally, we have to proceed unfortunately, under legislation. And that really starts at the province. The province kind of sets the tone for what things that we have to look at for the long term. They establish a provincial policy statement. They establish the growth plan, which I will get into, which really affects what we do from a housing perspective in the county and throughout the cities and Barries, as Andrea mentioned, that we are guided. We have to look at things like the source water protection to ensure that we protect our water and our wells that we get our municipal water from. We also want to protect the green belt, the Niagara Escarpment Plan, the Oak Ridges Moraine, and all those areas are in the county of Simcoe. You look to Collingwood, the Niagara Escarpment. You look to the south, we have the Oak Ridges Moraine and in the Alliston area, and so we have all these policies, and they set the framework on how we have to plan for the community, because we have to protect those areas. From a growth plan perspective, believe it or not, we have what we call as a land budget. We plan by numbers. This is set to us by the province. The province has set priorities of what communities can grow and by how much. That's been around for about 10 years. So the county has the role currently under current legislation. There are some discussions that may change, but from your perspective, the county is responsible for allocating population to our local municipalities like Alliston, Bradford, Innisfil, Essa Township, in areas Oro-Medonte. So we have to look at what the growth trends are. We have to look at what available lands. We have to look at what sewer and water services are available for all these communities, and from that we have to allocate population. The unfortunate part of that is we don't think we have enough population to allocate, and we hope that the province will update those populations, because what is going to happen, we have areas in the south of our communities, like Bradford grew by 25% from the last census. You got Allison growing by 13 to 14%. You've got Innisfil growing by 12%. So we have a tremendous amount of growth, and also Essa from the areas that are close to the GTA are seeing huge amounts of growth, unprecedented amounts of growth, and we need to make sure that we have adequate land available to keep affordable housing at a reasonable rate. And that's one of the challenges we have, is that getting this land onto the market and getting the towns to get to update their official plans to ensure that we can serve the residential demand, also the employment demand that we have. So as planners, we have to go through all these, we have to go through a number of studies, and I'll just go through all the boring parts and show you a couple, the complexity sometimes that are put through legislation of the things that we have to do. And it's unfortunate. It is getting more complex, but part of that is because we want to make sure that we have a safe environment. We want to protect water quality, and we want to protect the opportunities of a livable community that we have. And part of that process requires public consultation, and that's when you get a lot of competing interests. You get members of the community, of the existing community, want to protect the community. Then we got growth demands where we have new businesses that need homes for their new employees, and they might need higher densities and different types of densities. And this is where it gets really, where I think the process gets dragged down a little bit, is that when those competing interests get so tight, it's hard for politicians sometimes to make decisions, and sometimes that throws. And it's not bad that happens, but people want to be consulted. People want to protect their neighborhoods, which is a really good thing, because we all come here and love this area because we have an affinity to it that we want to protect. But at the same time, we have this growth and this opportunity that we want to manage in an appropriate way. So Part of our planning policies is trying to coordinate all these issues and try to find a happy medium where that people where there's a balance between good development, good community expansion, and in the appropriate location, that we protect the reasons why we're here in the long term. And I think that's the complexity. We're trying to come up with a county official plan through the Municipal Comprehensive Review, which we're going to be starting very soon. And we've got to look at everything from our housing strategy to our environmental strategy to our transportation strategy. It becomes a difficult road, and a lot of people say, well, why does it take so long? And Tim Hudak indicated in some cases it takes a long time. Unfortunately, consultation with the public and consultation with the environmental constraints that the public demands, unfortunately, is taking a long time, and that's not a bad thing, but it's trying to understand that, is there a way to streamline that process to ensure that we protect the communities, but at the same time allowing economic growth to happen in a positive and efficient way. And I think that's one of the things that we as all planners struggle with, is trying to have that balance of competing interests out there. And you probably see it too, because you probably sell homes to people who, hey, I love this neighborhood. Oh, all of a sudden you might see them again and said, yeah, well, I didn't know they were going to build this fourplex down the road or put secondary suites in the next door. So that's the issue that you have. You as realtors are boots on the ground for the community. You help us determine what the community interests. So we really do like working with realtors. We certainly want to let you understand the difficulties we have, and we want to understand the difficulties that you have in developing a planning process. And your participation in the process is important to us, because you let us know what the trends are happening.
Our site plan approval process from an economic development perspective and probably from a realtor perspective, we hate bureaucracy, right? I mean, it's just not something that we like to deal with. So what I like to say is that our site plan approval process is as quick and painless as a site plan approval process can get. Take that with a grain of salt. So essentially what we try and do, though, is, and I talked about this in our last presentation, was that sort of risk-free pre-consultation. Not every community does this. We're proud of this. You can come in with your client if they have a plot of land or if they have a project that they're looking at. Maybe it's an expansion to a parcel or whatever. And we'll give you meaningful feedback from our town departments, fire, engineering, building services, so that, and even if you don't own the parcel, even if you're looking at a purchase of a parcel, we've done 30 pre-consultations on some parcels. For true. So, we're looking at trying to make the process as easy as possible for your client and trying to remove the barriers up front, right? Because it's scary when you're purchasing for $500, $1 million an acre in some cases, and then you don't really know what the planning approvals are going to be or what the process is going to be. So we're looking at that, and hopefully that will allow for some more supply to come into the market. Our site plan approval process is 4 steps. That pre-consultation is a first step, and we require it in most cases. And we do that because we want to understand if your project is simple or complex. There could be very simple ones where it's a single detached home that's getting built. There may be subdivisions in some case, and we go, well, that's a little bit of a different process. Or there may be things on the shoreline, and I'll get into that soon. The second one is, obviously, you want to present your application for site plan control. Every parcel within Innisfil is relevant to site plan control, which means we want to see where your landscaping is, we want to see where your drainage is and your stormwater and where the actual buildings are and what's going to happen on the property. And we do that for the protection of you and for the protection of the community. What I would suggest is, if you're interested in doing a project, if it's residential or institutional, reach out to our development coordinators. They're the best uses of information in our community. There's a couple of them. They are the experts on the projects that you're looking for. If it's commercial industrial, come see me, because I'm going to be able to provide you a lot of background information on those type of things and get you in even before the pre-consultation meeting. Bring your clients on tours, give your clients information about the projects. What are some other opportunities that may be available that they haven't considered? So there's some things there. Step 3 is making revisions. So obviously we're going to provide feedback to that site plan, and that could be very significant feedback in some cases. You may get a book if you're not prepared. Ideally, you'd come in with a planner and an architect and a builder. Those are the easiest processes. However, that isn't always the case for some people, and we're able to walk people through that process as well. There may be multiple revisions depending on what you're looking at. And then finally, we can give you site plan approval, and you can actually get a building permit, which is what everybody is looking for. So that's sort of one of the things that I wanted to focus on, what the planning team wanted to focus on. Timelines, 4 to 6 months if everything is in order. So I'll give you that caveat. That doesn't always happen. Industrial commercial is more complicated than that. But if we're looking at a relatively simple application, you're looking at 4 to 6 months. We're generally cheaper and generally quicker than most communities. In fact, we're laughably cheaper than most communities that our team has said. So that doesn't mean it's going to be a cheap process, but it does mean it's sometimes cheaper. If there are variances, you do minor variances, you're doing zoning bylaw amendments, you're doing official plan amendments. Ideally, we'd avoid all of that because we hate bureaucracy. However, we can do all of that concurrently. So if we're doing a site plan process, we can do your minor variance, we can bring you through committee of adjustment at the same time. We want to make it as easy and painless for you as possible. We don't have that one window approach yet. I'll talk about that in our shoreline, but it's coming. So we're working on, is there one application where you get everything through and it's a quicker process, it's all in one form and a lot easier for you. What I do want to help people understand is we don't control the entire process. We have to deal with external agencies. We may deal with the County of Simcoe. We may deal with the Ministry of the Environment or the Ministry of Natural Resources. Not the County of Simcoe, but everybody but them take a long time to get back to us. The second thing I want to talk about is our shore, which is our shoreline permit system. This is a one-window approach. It's for low-density residential development along the shoreline. Generally, we don't have zoning for commercial or industrial along the shoreline, so you're only really going to be looking at that. What that process does is combine zoning review, site plan processes, grading, soil fill, vegetation removal, committee of adjustment. It's all one process for you. And then we involve external agencies like the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry or the Lake Simcoe Regional Conservation Authority. So we're combining everybody together, one process for you, a lot easier. The best way is reach out to the development coordinators. When you have a question, when you have a concern, don't start spending money before you actually talk to the town or the city or the county to make sure that you're getting the good information up front. It doesn't cost you anything. We're not here by the hour to give you that information up front in most cases. So that's really the thing that I want to give to you to start. And then the last thing is, we're looking at the growth plan. There's a couple of changes to the growth plan that are going to start creating significant pressure on municipalities. One of them being, we may be able to expand settlement boundaries without municipal comprehensive reviews. We may be able to switch zonings in certain cases from industrial to residential in some cases, or industrial to mixed use. There are some concerns there. There's some opportunities there. What I want to tell you is that we are not blanket opposed to these growth plan changes. I want to make sure that that's clear. What we have is actually a report going to council tonight. I'd encourage you all to read it. It has our significant comments. It basically says, if there's an opportunity for us to be a little bit more flexible in our planning approaches, we want to do that. But we want to do that within reason so that, like I said, going back to my last presentation, we're creating a community we can be proud of, a community that's actually cohesive and connected, and actually makes sense for people that want to live in our community.
I think the planning department and planning really is the foundation for community building. And so much of the stuff that we work on every day impacts everybody's lives. So I'm not going to go too much into this because David, I actually didn't see his slide, but he was talking about kind of the same type of things as it relates to planning policy and the framework. My slide shows how we kind of go from the lower level of detail at the high level from all the wonderful things the province submits, and then obviously down to the lower level. And the city of Barrie is what's called a single tier, so we aren't underneath the county of Simcoe official plan. So we have our own official plan, we have our own zoning bylaw, and obviously the closer to the ground you get, the more detailed planning documents become. I say, we start from up here kind of with the provincial level talking about motherhood statements, trees good, water good, that kind of thing, and then how it actually translates right down to people coming in for a minor variance because their deck is going to be 6 inches closer to the property line. So we kind of go from all of that level of detail. And, as I said, at the provincial level, as I said, there's those motherhood statements, and then municipalities have to take it because obviously Ontario is big, and municipalities have to take it to what makes sense for them. So this is a image that we keep saying we're getting a lot of traction out of because it really, in our opinion, it really shows kind of planning policy, and one of our biggest policy documents for the city is the official plan. And it really kind of shows how, that foundation to the official plan are all those master plans that you might see notices in the newspaper that the municipalities are working on, drainage master plans, transportation master plans, all those sorts of plans go into the basis of the official plan. And the official plan has policies that relate to all those types of things that you see there, those elements like transportation and connectivity, green spaces, built form, urban design, cultural heritage. And if you go back to thinking about that first slide I showed you with the aerial view of Barrie, you really do see how all those elements are touched by policy. Once you get through the official plan, which we kind of say is definitely our goals and objectives documents, it's the zoning bylaw that really implements it. And the zoning bylaw goes hand in hand. So you heard Andrea talk earlier in the day that we are doing a new official plan, and almost at the same time we're looking at updating the zoning bylaw so that when the official plan gets approved, those new zoning details will be approved very shortly after. But what's really important, I think, about policy is how it goes from policy to development. And I always say every development application that comes in is an opportunity for us all, not just the planning department, for us all to achieve those bigger goals, broader goals and objectives. And I say if we don't have planning applications, what you see is what you get, so to speak. David talks a lot about, and actually so did Brennan talked about, public consultation, more so David, public consultation. Brennan talked about our partner municipalities and our partner agencies that really bring the policies to life through development applications. So kind of here's just a list of on a daily basis, some of the applications. Some of the applications that we deal with are public, and then you talk about those public processes, public meetings. I'm a huge engagement fan. I love it. To me, a public meeting that no one shows up is not a good public meeting. I want people to come. We want to hear everything, and it's about making opportunities for those people. Some of our applications are decided by council. If you are like me and love watching Rogers, if I don't actually have to be there in person, I love watching council at 7 o'clock on Monday nights because so much gets decided. So some of the decisions are made by council. City of Barrie, some of our decisions are delegated to Andrea, delegated to our Director of Planning and Building Services. That is something that the City of Barrie does from a streamlining perspective. It's obviously a bit easier to get Andrea's signature on things than it is to get on a council agenda. And then some of our applications get decided by a committee of adjustment.
How do you develop your planning policies, and where can realtors get involved with that? We'll start with you, and then we'll let the two gentlemen chime in as well.
Well, I'm glad you start with me because we are doing a new official plan right this minute. So in terms of, developing plans and policies, so much of that, some of those provincial documents that we talked about earlier, they indicate what you have to do. We always kind of say planning, engagement, the planning, Planning Act says you have to engage by having an open house. You have to have a public meeting. Andrea and I look at those as the bare minimum. We've had tons of engagement already, and we haven't even kind of started drafting the official plan. So, so the official plan right now is our big project. And again, we have I have them at my desk, but we have like a youth workbook. I don't know, Andrea, if you look in that folder there, there's a youth workbook. There's the yeah, Be My Vanna. So if you've got youth, there's the Pillars document. That's the web code if anybody needs it, and the OPP, and then the youth workbook. So that engagement's going on right this minute. So I do encourage everybody. Andrea said it earlier. Buildingbarrie.ca is our online platform. So if you go on, you register, then you get the updates. It is a bit old school, but I would still say look at the Barrie Examiner because you see all of our notices in there about public meetings. Come to the public meetings, and it's not just the public meetings that planning has. We have lots of public meetings for road improvements and even our transportation master plans, all those sorts of things. Those public meetings are good. And then submit, if you've got submissions, then submit them to us. So, there's lots of opportunity for people to get involved. And, realtors, we've said all along, you guys are land experts in a different way than we're land experts, but that feedback that you're hearing from your clients or, what your clients want to do and sharing your clients' goals with us as well, goals and visions.
Excellent. That helps. Thank you. Brennan?
I always say try and get involved early in the process. Now, I deal with commercial industrial primarily, and we see a lot of misinformation go out, frankly, and maybe it's in ads or it's in signs on properties or whatever. Future development comes to mind in some cases. What I try and say is contact us early. Let's get some good information for your clients before you start spending money, before you start making applications. Let's get everybody on the same page right off the bat so that we're promising the same thing, so that we're promising realistic things, and so that we're promising something that can actually get delivered for your client.
Excellent. David?
So, obviously, everything that Michelle and Brennan indicated, I think, is important as well. But I think one of the other things you can do is, as planners in the county, and we include the cities of Barrie and Orillia, we kind of get together every 2 months, 3 months, and it's an opportunity for education. So if you have any ideas, or if you want to, as a group, you want to bring forward to us and understand, we'd be happy to have you attend one of our our sessions. We usually get 20 or 30 people, various planners from all the municipalities in the county, including the cities of Barrie and Orillia, and it would be a great opportunity to say, hey, here's what our challenges are. Provincially, locally, I think that would be a great opportunity to participate, so that you can. And it's pretty casual atmosphere too. It's not that formal. That you be more of a round table. We can chat, and we can certainly. So I would suggest that if you have some issues, but if you have the neighborhood issues, I would just knock on the planner's door and talk to your local planner. If it's more of a regional interest, come and see us at the county.
REA and the Ontario Realtor Party is pleased to support BDAR with the Breaking Ground event. Educating members on how municipal and provincial planning impacts development is essential in ensuring that Ontarians can work with highly trained professionals who is well-versed in the growth challenges of the communities which they serve. Kudos to your board of directors for approaching REA for this grant, which is supporting this event.
We work with the province of Ontario on an RFI program, which is, basically the province will say, hey, we have a business, a large business coming, international business looking for opportunities. They're looking for property. Can you tell us what type of property you have? They usually have a spell. They need 100 acres or 50 acres. They need rail. They need highway. And we put that together. And we work with the cities of Barrie and Orillia and put that together and try to get that information out within 24 hours, because speed, we've told now, the way these companies operate is critical to them in making their decision making. So we really have a broad program of helping our businesses. One of the things that we do is we have a partnership with you. We have a partnership. If you go to the county webpage, you'll see that we have a land inventory of all industrial commercial properties. And we're really proud of that. We're working with you guys, and it's uploaded every 24 hours. I think it's like 12:05 every day and midnight. That if you put a new listing on there, it's going to be on our webpage. So again, it's us working together to encourage activities in our community. We're trying to promote ourselves within to other businesses. A lot of times, businesses are saying, "Oh, I need this widget. I didn't realize there was this widget being produced here. I'm getting it from Ohio." And so we're trying to develop an internal supply chain that supports that our businesses support each other by promoting each other what they do. Because a lot of time business people are just trying to make those widgets or trying to do whatever they can, and they're focused on and getting things out. And so we're trying to help support the activities amongst themselves to understand what other people do in this area and what they can do and how they can support each other.
So as a township, for those of you who don't know, we're located southwest of Barrie. We're well positioned in Simcoe County, in the south of Simcoe County, and development has occurred in our municipality at a very fast rate. Between 2011 and 2016, we had 14% as our growth rate, which was second in Simcoe County and one of the highest growth rates in all of Canada. So it may sound like a small, sleepy little municipality, but in fact, we've been very busy. ESSA's primary growth center is Angus, Ontario, and it's a fully serviced town with full municipal services, municipal water, sewage system, stormwater, a storm drainage network. We have schools, rec center, a medical clinic, library, you name it. We are a complete community. The population of Angus grew from 6,000 to 12,000 over the past 10 years, and many of our new residents are coming from the GTA, so we are having that multicultural component added to our town. This didn't come as a surprise to Angus. We actually knew that our population was going to more than double since the year 2000 when we approved our last official plan. And at that time, council approved a sewage treatment plant expansion. So we knew that growth was coming. And now with technological advances, we've been able to more than double our population. And this will help to serve the remaining vacant lands that lie in the borders of the town. So this is what's been happening and what is going to happen in Angus and in Essa Township. In recent years, we've seen the south end of Angus, which is known as the Fifth Line, develop with 1,000 new homes under one development, that's Gold Park Homes alone. This area of Angus contains a new community parkland area and is connected to transportation routes leading to Barrie with a City of Barrie bus. It's linked to downtown Angus by connecting roads, and one important connection to our downtown to help support our downtown businesses in Angus will be open soon. County of Simcoe has acquired the Collingwood portion of the Barrie-Collingwood Railway, and so through the transition, we are just waiting on the new connecting link roadway through to downtown Angus to open up. And it's exciting because this is one of our, the Barrie-Collingwood Railway, which has been acquired by the county, will open up economic development opportunities, if not by railway with the City of Barrie, then trail opportunities, which could help to spark economic development opportunities in our region. So other recent developments in Angus include a plan of 365 mixed units along Centre Street. Again, a nice, healthy mixture of singles, semis, or links, which is very popular in our municipality, and townhouses. Those units are all being taken up nicely or well by the military component that we're linked with, CFB Base Borden, being a part of and a neighbor to our municipality. We have Zancor and Lancaster Homes projects, a plan of 400 mixed units as well, just north of Willoughby Road, a new arterial road which was funded by developers. We have a new development of 80 townhouses built by Casavia Estate Homes. And again, a nice mix of different types of housing, which we're able then to offer to the new residents looking to move to Essa. Coming soon in 2019, we have 270 units to be built by San Diego Homes and a plan containing 165 units as well on Centre Street, linking to that Fifth Line development, but helping as well, we hope, to feed into the downtown core in Angus. We have beautiful walking trails weaving amongst the rivers in Angus, and there's several other smaller sites waiting for residential development, as well as larger mixed residential or sites on County Road 90, which we hope will contain units and housing for seniors, as well as retail stores.
Oro-Medani is unique. We have a great opportunity. We're between the cities of Barrie and Aurelia. We also have a very large landmass. We're actually the largest land area in all of Simcoe County in terms of the rural municipalities. So we've really tried to focus on what is our focus and what's great about Oro-Medani. And if any of you are doing work out in Oro-Medani, you realize that's a lot of the recreational and tourism components. Having the two lakes, Lake Simcoe, Bass Lake, having the recreational opportunities, the trail structure, Hardwood Hills, Horseshoe, Mount St. Louis, all of the golf courses and the different amenities that are there. Those are all key features for Oro-Medani, and it's something we've really focused on in terms of making ourselves one of the Ontario's best tourism destinations, and we continue to focus on that. It obviously does, though, bring challenges as part of that, and I'm going to get into that a little bit later in my presentation on some new and trending uses that are occurring in Oro-Medani, and an area where you can probably provide some assistance to us. Similar to Essa and other areas, Oro-Medani has had significant growth over the last 10 years. We're seeing a lot of, at this point though, still residential development, getting into townhouse development. We're seeing our population, the largest component of our population is between 50 and 74 years of age. The seniors beyond that and the young adults or the millennials are not able to stay in the municipality, and that's one of the challenges that we need to work on. Affordable housing is a huge issue in Oro-Medonte. Part of that is due to the fact that we don't have communities at this time that are fully serviced. That's an area we're focused on, and I'll speak to that a little bit further as we go along. So we really try and encourage the secondary suites, the accessory apartments in the dwellings. We've had those permissions in place for a number of years, and we're seeing more of those, both for the seniors, for the parents to come home and help with the families, but also for the younger families to try and have that rental income. We are challenged from an infrastructure perspective, not just the water and the sewer servicing, but also natural gas and internet is a huge challenge in the municipality. So we're really trying to focus on how we deal with those issues. And I know it was something Andrea Barrie said earlier, it's a cost, it's a financial component, both for the businesses and the municipality. So we have to figure out how we can work together to ensure that those businesses can come to the community, but also expand in the community. We also have a great asset in our municipality. We have the Lake Simcoe Regional Airport, and they've just undertaken a new strategic plan, and they're really looking at where they're going to grow over the next 10 to 20 years as well. With changes at Pearson and Buttonville, they're looking at the opportunities that they have. They're looking at runway expansion. They're looking at additional growth in terms of commercial development, airside development, but we also have lands across from the airport that we're hoping over the next 2 years will also be developed for employment-related uses related to the airport. They need the airport, and it's easily accessible to Highway 11. So we're trying to ensure we partner with them to make sure we get the best out of their facility and work with them. We are in the process of updating our planning documents, our official plan and our zoning bylaw, and we are doing them concurrently. So similar to Barrie, it's a huge challenge, it's a lot of work, but we want to make sure that the policies and then the piece really that you see a lot when you're dealing with our staff team or with people looking to buy through you is really those boots on the ground. So what are the zoning, what are the permitted uses, what are those standards? So we're trying to make sure we update all of that, and we have an optimistic goal. We're intending to have all of that done by the end of the year, but similar to Barrie, it involves a lot of engagement and consultation, and there is information currently on the website, but we'll be going through a number of open houses and public meetings throughout this year. One of the other features we added late last year is what we call an interactive zoning viewer. So it allows individual residents, real estate agents, whomever, to go onto our website and be able to type in the address for a property that you're looking at and be able to see what the zoning of the property is and what the permitted uses of that property are. So it's a new feature that allows you to at least start the process to say, okay, now I know the property is zoned residential 1, this is what it allows. Now I can have a conversation with one of our planning staff team in terms of, I have a client that's interested in a particular use, what can I do with that particular property?
One of the themes that I heard from the municipal presenters was very clearly the importance of the provincial government. And when you listen to what they said about the province, do you have a feeling of optimism or pessimism of what's happening at the provincial level when it comes to local development?
Well, as the chair of the political action group, we had an opportunity to meet with our representatives down at Queen's Park, and I'm very actually encouraged by their level of commitment to eliminating red tape, and everyone's in recognition of the fact that we need to increase supply in order, at the first various most stages, reduce the amount of time it takes to get development and increase supply. That's the only way we're going to bring more affordable housing to bring the price down. So, and that's pretty much, I'm very encouraged.
Yeah, okay, that's good. And
President?
Tanya, how about yourself in terms of what theme you heard throughout the presentations with respect to the relationship at the provincial level? What jumped out at you as the most important provincial, local?
What really jumped out at me was I liked the common thread that employment opportunities in our communities is high, and it's on the top of the list for everyone. And because of that there's a great common ground and working together with the municipalities, with the province to build housing to accommodate that. It all goes together, so you all know you buy a house, there's employment opportunities, that revenue goes back into the community, so it's all very cohesive and a good camaraderie amongst everyone.
So why Centralized Campus? By amalgamating the 3 existing police buildings and sharing space with other first responders, this allows the city and the county to take advantage of cost savings during design and construction, as well as operational, administrative, and energy-related efficiencies. This allows the service partnerships to be better positioned in the new campus to collaborate more freely and develop stronger partnerships that will benefit the community through emergency preparedness, response, and training. And some benefits of co-locating these services is capital cost savings of an estimated $15 million, as well as operational savings of about $370,000. And through sharing amenities, each partner would have access to additional and improved facilities as compared to what would be feasible or affordable if they were separate and standalone facilities. Co-location also provides interagency communication, cooperation, and increases the ability to conduct multi-agency training. So the campus is being constructed in 2 phases on approximately 22.5-acre site at 110 Fairview. And phase 1 is currently under construction, which I'm sure many of you have seen as you've passed on the 400 or along Fairview Road. And phase 1 consists of Building A, which is the long shaded gray building that is parallel to Fairview on the north end of the image that you're looking at, as well as Building C, which is centrally located. And phase 2 involves the development of a future Building B, which is a shared fire and police training facility. And the campus was designed with the flexibility to accommodate the community's growth needs for the next 25 years plus. So what is making this difference and making this project a success? And so to create a state-of-the-art facility requires a state-of-the-art process. Phase 1 of the campus design and construction has been procured with an innovative and relatively new delivery method called Integrated Project Delivery, or IPD. And the city's facility is the 3rd in Ontario, and I believe the 2nd that is under construction right now. It's a relatively new and progressive means of building and a really unique construction contract. This model brings all project stakeholders together early on in the process to collaboratively harness the talents and insights of all participants to optimize the project results, increase value, reduce the waste, and maximize efficiency through all phases of design, fabrication, and construction. And the outcome of IPD is the opportunity to design, build, and operate as efficiently as possible. So I just wanted to conclude the presentation just with an update of the construction progress, where we are to date, and a few milestones moving forward. So as I've already alluded to, the major construction of the campus is well underway, and the site preparations began in just late fall of 2017. We are currently on site backfilling and doing site servicing as an ongoing task. And some really interesting facts are that over 12,000 concrete trucks have made a trip to our site, and we've had over 700 tons of rebar installed just in Building A alone. The building envelope is well underway, and both tower cranes were just removed prior to the end of 2018.
This is more than just gym and swim. This is an investment in social infrastructure as we look to build the why we need today for the Barrie we want tomorrow. And it's really important that I think all of our community understands that this isn't just building a community center, but this really is an investment in everyone. And specifically in this case, it's an investment in our downtown. So this is a different kind of why. And in fact, if we build the same why on our new property on the former Barrie Central site, we will have failed. The days of standalone health and fitness and aquatic facilities are long past, just as the days of standalone libraries and standalone hockey rinks are long past. This has got to be about more than just one organization's programs and services. It needs to be about that, but also leveraging community partnerships and strengthening our community partners, and about being part of the economic development of the neighborhood that we're serving. So while this will have traditional Y programs like health, fitness, and aquatics, and licensed childcare, and youth employment and youth outreach counseling services, it will also house community partnerships. So we're currently working with the hospital on cardiac rehabilitation and on cancer rehabilitation. And so those programs will be actually delivered within a new YMCA as opposed to in RVH in partnership. So again, it's getting people who are getting healthy working out and being active with healthy people as opposed to those who are facing illness and facing sickness. We're also working with the County of Simcoe and our partners at Youth Haven to introduce a transitional housing component within the facility, separate entrance, separate facilities, but housed within it. So we can address one of the most pressing issues within our community, which we know is housing, especially for young people, and we heard about that earlier today. We're also looking at working with local mental health agencies to create a non-clinical space for young people to talk to a mental health expert or a mental health counselor, so that maybe if a kid's playing basketball, they can very casually and easily just hang behind and have a one-on-one drop-in session with a counselor. It's also about strengthening that end of downtown. And I think when we all talk about that end of downtown, we know what we're talking about. You know what I'm talking about. It will create employment opportunities both in the short term and in the long term. The YMCA is actually one of the 10 largest employers in Simcoe County. We have well over 1,000 employees, and this will become our largest health and fitness facility as well, with the child care component and youth counseling and youth employment programs. It will also obviously create well over 100 job years in the development process. This is a huge project with lots of moving parts, and will be an economic stimulus to that end. And then it will help create that gateway to the downtown on the west end. If you think about the city's plans for Fisher Auditorium, and HIP development's plans for development of towers behind, on that parcel of land, you think of the role that the Barrie Central, Prince of Wales, and Red Story Field can play in really bringing that end of downtown back up. We're thrilled to be a part of that process.
So I'm excited to talk to you today because you know about the growth that is happening throughout our region. You see it firsthand, particularly in South Barrie and Innisfil. You know the demand for healthcare, and you also know the important role that healthcare plays in people's decision to relocate into a community. It's one of the first questions they ask. What's the local hospital like, particularly if they're older? What kind of health services are available to me? So I'm happy today to talk to you about our plans for the future. And RVH is in the midst of a long-range planning exercise. We're about halfway in. We've been at it a year. And it's really designed to do two things. So planning for what's going to happen on our current North Campus, the Georgian Drive site. It needs to be redeveloped and expanded. It was only opened in 1997, doubled in size in 2012, and already we are completely out of space. So that's number one on our list, a master plan for the North Campus. Also on the list is planning for a brand new South Campus, and that'll be a graduated model. I'll tell you a little bit more about that so you can have a better sense of what that's going to look like over the next 20 years. So why now? Why expand, certainly our current site, but more importantly, why is South Campus now? You just doubled in size in 2012. That's unheard of. Unheard of to double in size after being built on a greenfield site. Am I right? That never happens. That it just doesn't happen in the province. But the provincial government recognized that the growth that we're seeing in this area is extraordinary and does not happen in every community. So we're very appreciative of the opportunity to expand. So when we take a look at what happened when we expanded in 2012, we were only able to act on 9 of 17 priorities. So cancer care was one of them. But things like maternal child care, obstetrics, our neonatal intensive unit as an example, those things we couldn't touch. And you'll know that in government, you reach a point where it's kind of take it or leave it. Let's move forward with this, what we have approval for, and we'll work toward the next phase at a later point. When we built the expansion, we were given permission, and I think this shows great vision on the part of both government and RVH, to build 2 shelled units. So these are units that are shelled. They're fitted out with gas and electrical. They look unfinished, but all the guts are in the walls. So it's easy to expand those units. And in fact, part of the 1 shelled unit is where we built the Simcoe-Muskoka Regional Heart Program. But we still have a little bit of space still to be developed. We know that our 40-acre site is full. Unless we go to multi-tier parking, which it looks like we're going to have to, you in the business would know that multi-tier parking is a loss leader. It's difficult. You lose money on multi-tier parking, but we are out of space, and we're going to need to go up. There's no other way. We opened 40 additional beds last year, a transitional care unit, thank goodness. We are at about 115% occupancy every day. Today, we have almost 30 patients in our hospital without a bed. So they're being cared for in hallways, quiet rooms, temporary surge units. We're fitting beds where we can. But that's today. That's not 10 years from now. And the population is only going to explode when you look at the numbers. And Tim Hudak will know, it takes a long time to work through the government process of getting awarded a hospital. It can take up to 20 years. My previous life was as a journalist, and I remember covering getting approval for Royal Victoria Hospital at the time. And it was 9 different health ministers that approved that. It took 15 years. It takes a very long time. So we have to start now. So let's take a look at this population growth. Can you all see it there? It's all coming up. So this is what's going to be happening in this region over the next little bit. So by 2041, the population of Barrie, Innisfil, Springwater is going to double. That's the equivalent of Oshawa. I find that incredible. That's what's going to happen by 2041. And we know that it's incredible growth, particularly in the South End in Innisfil. And it's a real mix of people who are moving in. We have a lot of young families that need a different kind of health care in the South End. In the North End, but really spread throughout, we also have a lot of older residents. And we know that seniors use health care about 5 times the rate of the rest of the population. So we know that there's going to be a need for services at both ends of the spectrum. We spent a lot of time looking at where is the best spot to develop this. This is the site selection area. So if you haven't seen this before, it's west of Lake Simcoe, east of the 400, except after community consultation, we added that little red sliver there, the industrial lands. South of Kempenfelt Bay, so it does encompass the Barrie Annex lands. And then south to roughly about the 14th line. That's the area that we have now centered our site selection on, based on consultation through the community. But the shortlisted zones, we're working with those technical experts. Again, we've looked at about 2,000 data points. And we're now looking at the Highway 400 corridor, the industrial lands, sort of South Barrie, North Stroud, and then South Stroud along the Yonge corridor, South Alcona, and the 6th and Yonge. Now, those of you who've been in the community a few years will know that we were gifted land, 50 acres of land, through the Cortel Group in that area, the donor lands, in 2009. We're very appreciative of that gift. But all along we have said the cost of land compared to building, but more importantly, operating a hospital is, I won't say insignificant because it's a chunk of change, but it doesn't compare. So we're talking about a legacy construction. We have to get it right. It has to be in the right place. And we need to do a lot of consultation, a lot of looking at data points to make sure it's the right place.
Was it a site of opportunity, or would that be a site that you would have chosen out of the blue?
Yeah, no. So for us, there was 2 different intersecting processes. We went through a community consultation piece. So over the period of several years, talking to groups of community leaders, of community partners, to understand where the Y could best meet our mission of building a healthy community. But then also, because the Y is a social enterprise, we had to do a business plan perspective as well. And so we did farm out a consultation process to Leisure Plan to understand in what community, in what space could we drive the highest membership base to fund the programs that we deliver. And so there was a correspondence there that certainly being in the downtown core was important. And actually previously to working with HIP Developments, we did try to purchase that land once before with the college. So Georgian College and the Y, we're going to look at a joint campus there. We didn't win the RFP, but then opportunity did come. Almost immediately as soon as HIP Developments was announced as the purchaser. One of the first calls that we received was from HIP Developments asking if we would be interested in partnering on that site. So for us, it's been a long process, but certainly a process of serendipity, and that we really do believe we're building in the right place.
Cool. Jessica, you're on your site on Fairview Drive. Can you make any comments about the reason that was chosen or the site selection process? Yeah.
Sure. I am on. Perfect. So in 2015, a site evaluation report was conducted by the city, and there were several locations that were considered. And of course, many that were alluded to during everyone's presentation, such as the zoning, the GIS requirements, EA, the acreages of the site, the percentage of the site that was developable or non-developable was a big factor, transit, accessibility, all those pieces. But it, for us, really came down to three large factors. One being, and it was really probably strong in the presentation, a very much a centralized location, a site that was large enough to support the city's growth in 25 plus years. So there is enough space currently on the 25.5 acre site for current programs, as well as future growth for both the city and the county, as well as parking. And then the ability to have a presence from the 400 and to just establish amongst the community the partnership of the responders was probably the number one piece.
Cool, thank you.
So listen, that brings us to the end of our event. I hope that you all enjoyed, everyone that came up here to talk, and I hope you've taken a lot away. The one thing I would like to say, something else that I took away from here, is that all of these township cities, community groups, they're all hosting or holding, council nights, organization nights, where you can go and be a part of that and learn more about what's going on. And I would encourage all of you to do that. Maybe get involved and get more informed about what's happening, volunteer. Everybody needs the help any which way that it can come. So I encourage all of you to not just stop here with this event, attend all of our other events, as Robin told you, but also to get involved with these organizations and to put your 2 cents in. You are on the ground, you know what's happening, so your input is really, really valuable. All that being said, thank you to AREA, Mr. Tim Hudak, and Mr. Stephen Cotan, Sean Morrison, Mike Douglas for partnering up with us and helping create this event, and to Robin and his team for organizing everything, and Julia and her amazing staff. They've been all over the place. They work so hard. So round of applause to all of you.